Diegans rallied to restore proposed cuts to arts and culture in the city. We have the latest.
The woman charged with killing a 6-year-old boy while riding his bike to Pacific Beach was in court today. Hear testimony from his emotional parents.
Emails, spells, and search histories, all at the center of today's testimony in the Millete murder trial. We'll take you back inside the courtroom.
Stolen baseball equipment in a priceless glove. One man's mission to get his stuff back.
Remember the old Mimi's Cafe in Mira Mesa? What's going on with a plan to replace it? I'm working for you to get an update.
Fighting to save the arts. Tonight, hundreds of San Diegans are packing city council chambers to protest nearly $12 million in proposed budget cuts to arts and culture funding in the city of San Diego. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Marcella Lee.
I'm Carlo Cicchetto. These cuts remain even as the mayor's office restored millions of dollars in funding to libraries and rec centers in its revised $6.4 billion budget. Richard Allen joins us live from City Hall with more. Richard?
Well, Carlo and Marcella, that's right. Right now, San Diegans are beginning to pack council chambers behind me here at City Hall to have their say on Mayor Todd Gloria's newly revised budget, which came out a couple weeks ago. Now, it did come out a couple weeks ago, partially reversing cuts to library hours and rec centers, also fully funding December nights, but not everything got restored. Take a listen.
The arts, fund the arts, fund the arts.
And as you can hear, many other programs remain on the chopping block, including the city's Art and Cultures grants, which are still slated to lose nearly $12 million. Now, leading up to tonight's budget hearing, advocates for the arts rallied outside of City Hall, demanding that this new budget provide funding for these programs.
Instead of cutting the arts, we should be doubling down. If you really want to cut the budget or activate that budget, you double down on investing in your arts infrastructure in order to attract cultural tourists to come and spend money here. And it's just so incredibly short-sighted.
And this $4 billion budget for some, but of being cut. Now, it also fully restores funding for December nights, allocates opioid settlement funds for treatment and support programs, and adds an extra $500,000 to youth drop-in centers, as well as the violence prevention program, No Shots Fired. Now, the funding for these restorations in the revised proposal comes from rising hotel rack tax revenue, as well as millions of dollars from the city's golf courses. Now, this budget revise also continues to prioritize funding for public safety, infrastructure, homelessness services, and affordable housing. Now, back out live here at City Hall, tonight's hearing is giving San Diegans a chance to give their input before the final budget is approved. Now, that final approval by City Council could come as early as June 9th, but it needs to be finalized by June 30th, right before the start of the fiscal year. Carlo and Marcella?
Clock is ticking. Thanks, Richard. The woman accused of hitting and killing a 6-year-old boy in Pacific Beach with a Jeep was in court today, where a judge ruled she will stand trial.
It was an emotional day in court, and News 8's Alex Cheney was there. He joins us live now with a heartbreaking testimony. Alex?
Yeah, Marcella, the courtroom was packed today, and I heard lots of tears in there as the courtroom got to see the parents of Hudson, both Matthew and Juliana today. They talked about the horrible experience they went through the death of their son. Here's more.
All right, anything else before we begin with the next witness?
In the Central Courthouse downtown today, 32-year-old Tiffany Sanchez, who was charged with killing Hudson while he was riding his bike with his family. She was there for her preliminary hearing, facing 3 charges of gross vehicular manslaughter, fleeing the scene of a crash that caused death, and driving with an expired license from the crash on January 17th.
He was struggling to breathe. His jaw was clenched.
Juliana Kapovich, the mother of Hudson, told the court through her tears what Hudson looked like immediately after being struck by a car.
He was blue, and he was convulsing. I was asked to hold his life down so that we can keep him still.
Lawyers played the 911 call in court.
San Diego 911. Hello, my son was just hit by a car.
Albal Sanchez looked on in tears of her own. Hudson's father, Matthew, also gave witness testimony today.
This is the alleyway where my son was killed.
Matthew described the final moments of 6-year-old Hudson's life at the intersection of Ingram and Pacific Beach Drive.
He just was having trouble breathing, and then we laid him down, and well, he died.
The deputy district attorney says Sanchez struck Hudson twice. The first impact when she took a right into the alleyway and knocked Hudson off his bike. The second when she reversed to exit the alleyway, driving back over Hudson's body. She says it was the second impact that did the most damage. Just a horrible, tragic situation. Sanchez will be back in court for the start of her trial on September 8th. Reporting live, I'm Alex Cheney. Back over to you.
Thank you, Alex. An unraveling marriage that ended in murder. That's what prosecutors say happened to missing Chula Vista mom Maya Miliete.
Her husband Larry is on trial, and today Chula Vista police were back on the stand, as well as Maya's boss and brother, with bombshell testimony. Our Jenny Day shares what happened today in the South Bay courthouse.
Maya's brother, J.P. Tabalanza, just testified that his former brother-in-law reached out upset about Maya's marital affair, and he says Larry asked him if he knew anyone who could get the other guy. He says he interpreted it to kill the man Maya was having an affair with. He says he told Larry it is not worth it. He says this happened around Christmas of 2020. Again, Maya disappeared in January of 2021. Now, the rest of today's testimony all centered on emails, search history, and those spells that police say Larry purchased, all in an effort to control his wife, who wanted a divorce. The Miliete murder trial continued Wednesday with Chula Vista police showing what their search results uncovered. They say emails from Larry found on a laptop over a 4-month span leading up to Maya's disappearance include love spells that work, black magic spells, punisher spells, emergency spells, hexes for revenge, and subliminal wife training. Also searches that include incapacitate and can you make her sick so she has to depend on us for care. The Chula Vista Police Department also showed Larry had been keeping a log of Maya's whereabouts, documenting when she went to Walmart, when she went to lunch. Emails between Larry and Maya that consistently went back and forth for months stopped suddenly January 7th, 2021. 2 weeks later, police say attempts were made to log in and change Maya's Facebook password. The detective also testified about photos on the computer, screenshots of Maya's social media account, and screenshots of Jamie Laird's, the man Maya was having an affair with. The defense continuing to suggest police got tunnel vision and did not thoroughly investigate him. He and his now ex-wife are still set to testify during trial. More police body camera footage was also played showing the initial search of their vehicles after Maya's sister reported her missing. Again, prosecutors allege Maya was killed January 7th. The first search was done January 10th. The officer testifying Larry's Lexus was exceptionally clean. Maya's Jeep also had a bag in the back seat that contained a hatchet, hammer, mallet, knife, gloves, and duct tape. All that was said is these could be tools for off-roading. The next witness was Larry's boss, who went over his time card on the days in question, saying Larry took unplanned time off the day after prosecutors say Maya was killed. Back now to Maya's brother, who just stepped off the stand. He says Larry brought up this alleged murder for hire plot a second time, this time on New Year's Day of 2021. Again, Maya went missing 1 week later. The defense pointed to the fact that Larry only ever told him that he wanted to repair the marriage and keep his family together. I'll tell you, these families have been close for 20 years, so court is tense. Cross-examination continues tomorrow. Reporting in Chula Vista, Jenny Day, News 8.
Thanks, Jenny. And you can watch our coverage of the Miliete case with the CBS 8 app on your phone or TV. Stream now for free.
With just 6 days until the June primary, Governor Gavin Newsom today signed a bill into law addressing ballot seizures and election equipment interference.
The bill strengthens ballot chain of custody protections and prohibits unauthorized access to voting systems, voting machines, or voter data. It also gives the California Attorney General, Secretary of State, and local election officials the ability to respond quickly with legal action if there is a threat of election interference. Newsom says these additional protections signed into law today are especially important ahead of the 2026 election.
That's what this legislation begins to address, a pattern of actions. That pattern, by the way, unfolded in primarily blue states where the Trump administration tried to access the voting rolls of our states. If not for the courts and the state of mind of the attorney generals and governors in those states, he likely would have had access to that. He's trying to vandalize trust as it relates to vote by mail and so many other categories.
Election workers should never fear political intimidation for simply doing their job. Voters should never wonder whether ballots were improperly handled, and law enforcement powers should never be misused in ways that jeopardize the integrity of our democratic process.
The state leaders pointed to Riverside County Sheriff and Republican gubernatorial candidate Chad Bianco's recent seizure of Proposition 50 ballots that Bianco says was due to suspected fraud. The California Supreme Court stopped Bianco's process for now. Meanwhile, Governor Newsom called on all 58 counties to tally election results faster, though no additional funding or resources have been allocated for that effort. And when it comes to elections, state officials have sounded the alarm on protecting poll sites from immigration enforcement.
Today, Assembly members debated contentiously for hours on a package of bills addressing ICE activity here in California. One especially contentious bill, AB 2230. Its author, Democratic Assembly member Ana Marie Avila Farias, says the bill is intended to protect poll sites and daycare facilities from federal immigration enforcement. They would have to have a judicial warrant, subpoena, or court order. Democrats expressed strong support, saying these are sensitive sites that warrant more protection. Republicans say the bills are preventing law enforcement from doing their job. You're going to hear first from the Democrats, then from Republicans.
To prohibit immigration enforcement from entering or surrounding these locations, ensuring that people can vote and children can learn without fear.
We shouldn't have to be protecting our polling places and daycares from ICE agents from intimidation, but this is the reality.
Because this is a reality for us. It is not, we're not reading this in books.
A theme by the majority party of this legislature, and that is, let's demonize federal law enforcement agents.
This doesn't make us bad people. This doesn't make us morally repugnant.
The bill passed the Assembly largely along party lines and now heads to the Senate. We reached out to the White House and asked if they plan on sending ICE or any other federal agents to California polling sites in June and or November.
They did not answer our question directly, instead saying President Trump is committed to ensuring Americans have full confidence in voting, including via stricter voter ID requirements. One candidate in California's governor race has made history, spending a record amount of money on political ads.
A new report says that billionaire Tom Steyer has spent more than $195 million on ads for broadcast TV, cable, and radio, and the tally is still growing. That figure was calculated by Ad Impact, an advertising tracker company. This beats the previous national spending record set up by Republican Meg Whitman, who spent more than $178 million when she ran to be California's governor back in 2010. Steyer's spending is more than 20 times higher than the amount spent by his nearest rival, Javier Becerra. Nationally, the candidate who spent the second highest dollar amount on their campaign is Rick Johnson, who has spent $83 million in Georgia's governor's race.
That is a lot of money. Okay, one North County man went on a mission to find items he says were stolen from his pickup.
We will share how he was able to track down those items coming up next.
Plus, the big makeover coming to Harbor Island.
Cool temperatures in our forecast for today. We're still below seasonal, and we see that stretching all the way to the desert. We'll go ahead and take a look at how long they're going to stick around coming up.